To the exclusive Vitruvian Health Strength Conditioning Q&A with Tats Pun, the strength technician of Vitruvian Health, senior coach, and all-round strong motherfucker. So Tats, it is a privilege to have you run this Q&A today. I know I'm excited to take lots of notes, and I know this is the second time we're running this Q&A, so I can recap and refresh. So thank you. Thanks, girl. Oh, funny.
Cool. So what I'm going to do today is a revisal on upper body anatomy. We are going to run through the terms again. I'm going to quiz you on a couple of things. Or do you just want me to run through everything so it's recorded in one go?
Yeah, you can quiz as well. That's fine.
Okay, cool. So just to have everyone to brush up, I'm going to get you all to answer, some questions I have for you. So it's not just me giving you all the information again. It just helps stick that way, because I find the only way to actually get the knowledge in your brain is through repetition. It's completely okay to look at your notes. I'm so fine with that, because I also need my notes to memorize it as well. So without further ado, we're going to go into the musculoskeletal system of the upper body. Okay. The first thing we're going to cover is joints, and joints are usually where two or more bones meet. That is what a joint consists of and allows movement in our bodies. So there are three categories of joints. There's the immovable ones, such as the hard parts of our skull. Okay. Jordan, can you tell me the second category of joints?
Slightly movable.
It's cool. Slightly movable, such as ribs, okay, and where they attach. All right. And Eddie, what would be the third category?
Freely movable.
Fantastic. So freely movable joints. Okay. Just have to double check that. And and in freely movable, we have subcategories of joints. Dunya, can you tell me how many subcategories there are?
In freely movable, you said?
Yes. So there's 5 subcategory of joints in a freely movable.
I can't remember.
Yeah. So I'll start you off on one of them. I just need you to list off some of them. One of them is a hinge joint, like our elbow and our knee. They're both hinge joints. There are also other categories of the joints in freely movable. Can you list what they are?
Rotator joint.
There's nothing really called a rotator joint, so I think what you're calling more is the ball and socket.
Okay.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I'm trying to find the notes, but I can't.
So one more time, I'm gonna tell you guys this. Like, I literally put tags on every single piece of the notes. Yeah, I really recommend you just to put tags on and color code it. It just helps so much more, because like I said, I'm so fine with you guys revising notes. Like, it's needed, and you'll probably repeat it for like 6 months to a year before it all gets into your head, and if you don't repeat it, you'll forget it. It happens. Okay. But as long as you got information there, it's awesome. Okay, so there's a ball and socket joint. Okay, what are the 2 main movers of our body that are ball and socket joints, Maria? Or prime movers?
The shoulder joint and the hip joint.
Yep, exactly. Shoulder joint and hip joints are the prime movers of the body. Okay, and we got, following that, we got the saddle joint. Okay, the condyloid joint, the plane joints, and the pivot joints. Those you don't really need to know as much. What we're more focused on basic anatomy, is more the ball and socket and also hinge joints. Okay, 1 second. One of my tabs just fell off. Cool. So that is the categories of joints. Okay, and through joints, there is always a pair of movement that occurs at the joint. Okay, for example, at the elbow joint, okay, there is flexion and extension that happens at the elbow. Okay, I'm gonna fire them off. Okay, Eddie, can you name one pair of movements for me?
You mean action of a movement?
Yes. So action of the joint. So we have flexion.
Action of the joint.
Yeah. What else is it?
Adduction, abduction.
Adduction, abduction. Very good. George, can you list one off for me? You know what I mean?
Retraction and protraction.
Retraction and protraction. Yes, very good. That where does that occur in?
Scap.
And also, fun fact, no, sorry, not so that's the scap. But fun fact, we also have elevation and depression of the scapula, but that also occurs in your jaw as well. Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah. So what's another one, Jordan?
Eversion and inversion.
Yes, very good. Of the ankle. Good, good. Maria, can you list off another one for me, please?
Repeat that, sorry.
Can you name action of the joint? So far we've covered flexion, extension, abduction, adduction. We've got eversion and inversion. We got protraction, retraction, and elevation and depression.
Okay, adduction, abduction.
We already covered that. We've got 3 more we haven't listed off.
Extension. Let me think. 1 second. Let me go grab my notes.
Okay, cool. We'll come back to Maria. Next off, so I've got an hour to cover this with you guys, all right? So we need to go rapid fire. Eddie, can you list off another one for me, please?
Dorsiflexion, plantar flexion.
Very good, very good. Of the ankle. Maria's back. Can you list off another one? There's 2 left.
No, I'm still looking. Sorry, I did because I was like that. That was a good one. Sorry.
Okay, that's all good. George, can you list off one more for me? And then we'll leave the last one for
Not
Maria.
off the top of my head, man. Sorry.
Okay, cool. So I'll list off another one. There's pronate and supinate of the wrist. Okay, and last one, Maria. I'll give you a hint. It happens at the shoulder joint.
The shoulder joint. External.
Very good. And
Internal.
so there's external rotation and
external rotation. Internal and external.
yeah, very good. So we got internal, external rotation of the shoulder joint as well. Okay, good. All right, so joints, one more time, always act in coupled movements, okay? And how that works is there's muscle surrounding the joint that helps move it, okay? There is an agonist and antagonist of a joint, okay? And what that means is these movement pairs have an agonist, which is a prime mover, and then there's an antagonist of the joint as well, which usually is on the opposite side or working the opposite forces. Either tends to relax to allow movement of the agonist or goes into an eccentric contraction to allow the agonist to move, okay? Or helps transfer force. Now, the second thing we also have as well is synergists as well, which helps support the joint in movement, okay? And then we also have, so synergists, and we also have fixators as well, which is more stabilizing like groups of muscle. So the thing with synergists is you have to realize when you go into isolated exercises for programming, whether you're doing bodybuilding, whether you're doing powerlifting, or even if it's just health in general, there is no such thing of isolating a singular muscle in an exercise, okay? What you should look at instead is isolating a joint. Just because you do a hamstring curl doesn't mean you only work the heads of the hamstring. You also have the synergists, such as the calf muscles coming in, to help stabilize that knee when it goes into flexion. Okay, so when you program from now on, guys, even if you're doing aesthetics programming as well, it will help sometime just to think of the movements of the joint when you go to program, and that's what we'll kind of cover on Thursday as well when we go into a little bit of upper body programming, when we talk a little bit deeper into 1-to-1 ratio in comparison to effort of the exercise and the program. Okay, so we had a chat about all this, okay, and now we're gonna go into the muscles, and this I'll quiz you on as well. All right, so let's start off with the bicep brachii. Bicep meaning 2 heads, bicep, so bi, 2 heads, brachii is arm, bicep brachii, okay? What, Jordan, can you tell me the movements of the bicep? You don't have to show me it. I will show you guys how to move or what the movement is, but I just need you guys to tell me from your notes. You're on mute.
Flex and supinate.
Yes, exactly. So what the Biceps Brachii does, okay, there's a long head and a short head. That's why there's two heads. It flexes the arm and also supinates, okay? And it also flexes the arm at the glenohumeral joint, which is the shoulder joint, okay? That's the responsibility of the Biceps Brachii. Dunya, the next one is Triceps Brachii, three heads, brachii, arm. Okay, it consists of the long head, medial head, and the lateral head. Okay, so long, medial, and lateral. Okay, what movements what movements happen from the tricep?
The extension.
Yep.
And it's assisting assists also the extension. Oh, I don't know what I wrote here.
No. You're very close. You're very close. So extension of the elbow.
Also, yeah, an extension of the shoulder, right?
And also, yes, exactly, aids in extension of the shoulder joint, okay, and adduction, okay? So it helps in any kind of row movements as well, yeah? And when you guys learn a bit more deeper into anatomy, where you learn where the origins and insertions or the proximal attachments and the distal attachments are of the muscle, it'll make sense of why it aids in extension and adduction, okay? Which is a row movement. Eddie, you've got the next one. We're going into Brachioradialis, okay, which is brachii, arm, radius, okay, the bone of one of the forearms. What are the movements of this muscle?
Elbow joint flexion.
Correct, okay. What else does it do?
Pronation of the arm.
Exactly. So, fun fact, okay, what we're going to learn about the, so there's two bones of the arm. There is an ulna and the radius. Radius, think of it as the rotator. It helps supinate and also pronate the wrist, okay? And that's why we're going to go into a little bit again. But that's why when we go to bench, we want to do a gorilla grip, which is where we turn our hands in slightly, okay? Because the bar is going to sit across, okay, your hand like this. And the bone is the starts with P, Pillphizer bone. I need to correct that one. It sounds like that. But anyway, it sits on one of the bones on this. And the Pillphizer bone actually stacks on top of the ulna, okay? And the ulna is the one that's like stable. It doesn't move, okay? It's a radius that rotates. So when it stacks onto the ulna, okay, and then it stacks into the elbow joint, okay? Elbow joint's connected from the humerus into the glenohumeral joint of the shoulder. That is what makes it stable. That's why when you bench, you don't want to necessarily just hold the bar like this. One, it's a big strain on the wrist. Number two, you're going to get a lot more out of it if you slightly like rotate your hands in so the bar sits across that palm nicely onto the bone, and it's going to help you even the cute pull on the bar to engage more scapular traction and depression and external rotation of the shoulder joint as well, okay? So that's why we cue to do the gorilla grip, all right? So very good. The elbow joint, so the brachioradialis flexes the elbow joint and also semi-pronates it, okay? That's why hammer curls are great, all right? So the next one we're going to go into is the rotator cuff, and the rotator cuff has 4 muscles. Okay, George, can you tell me one of the muscles of the rotator cuff? You're mute.
I know. I'm thinking. I know the muscle. I just don't know what it's called. I can't tell you. Sorry.
Okay. So Jordan, can you tell me one of the muscles of the rotator cuff and also the movement of it as well?
Yeah, so infraspinatus.
Yep.
External rotation.
Cool, very good. Eddie.
Subscapularis external rotation.
Very good. Okay, these are the external rotators of the shoulder. they do very good with external rotation exercises such as dumbbell external rotation. Okay, and one more time is the gravity load of where the force pulls. Okay, has to be parallel. Okay, to where you're working it. All right, so people who do this to do external rotation with dumbbells, because gravity is pulling down on the elbow joint instead, you're more working the brachioradialis and also the bicep heads as well, instead of actually working any external rotation of the shoulder joint. Yeah, you're creating a very powerful, strong isometric exercise, okay, of the bicep, but that's not what we want. To make sure that the load is efficiently used, okay, on the muscles that we want. So that's why I went to moment arms last time and lever arms last time, but you just have to remember gravity has to be acting on it. You need a resistive line of force. You need resistance on it. That's why when we go into horizontal external rotation, we use a cable instead to stimulate the gravity from the horizontal plane. Okay? So anyone who does this, like, it kind of does nothing. All right. So the next, Maria, can you tell me another muscle of the rotator cuff?
So we got, so far we got teres minor.
So what we have, wait, Eddie, did you say the subscapularis is a external rotator?
Yes.
Yes, it does. It contributes to it. Yeah. So we got infraspinatus and subscapularis.
Okay.
Eddie, you said subscapularis, did you? Or supraspinatus?
Yes.
Okay. So
No, I said subscapularis. Supraspinatus does else.
So sorry, my bad. Subscapularis actually does internal rotation instead. It is an internal rotator. Maria was right. So teres minor is actually the external rotator. Sorry about that. I got a little bit confused there. So one more time, that's my bad. Infraspinatus is an external rotator paired up with the teres minor. They're both external rotators. The subscapularis is a medial rotator or internal rotator instead.
The supraspinatus abduction.
Yeah, so supraspinatus aids in abduction and slightly also aids in external rotation as well, okay, or lateral rotation, whichever one you want to call it. All right, so these are the muscles of the rotator cuff. It is a very strong shoulder stabilizer. And remember, when we train it, you have to remember the 1-to-1 ratio is always going to be in comparison to effort instead of how many kilos. Okay, yeah, you got to do on it because these muscles are so small, a little bit of weight goes a very long way, but you have to do it properly with control. So when you do those external rotation, I'm not just going to get you to focus on controlling the movement up for external rotation. You also have to control the movement down to work that internal rotation of it, all right? So the last muscle that is not included in the rotator cuff anymore is, what is it, Dunya? You're mute, Dunya.
The teres major?
Yeah, it's the teres major, and what does it do?
External rotation, does it?
No. So remember, a good way to remember the teres major is its lats little helper. It's actually, I can't reach behind my back, but it actually is, it helps insert into it, okay? And it aids in adduction. Okay? So that's what it aids with. Any movement, okay, anything, you don't need to train it specifically because any form of lat pull downs, okay, we'll get into it. Anything that the lat does will work the teres major. Mm-hmm. So we don't really need to work on that too much, okay? The next muscle is the deltoid, okay? Deltoid, okay? And then we got delta equals triangular. So that's how we remember it as the deltoid. There are 3 heads of the deltoid, okay? George, can you list out one of them?
The mid?
Say it properly.
I don't know. I don't know the actual terms. I'm sorry. I'm learning.
So that's okay. It just shows that you studied anatomy in your course, yeah?
I haven't done it yet.
We studied a little bit of it, okay?
Yeah.
But it's mid is correct, but the proper terminology for mid is medial, okay? We have to start learning this. And medial means closer to the center of the body, yeah? That's how you remember it. Lateral is to the side or further away from the center of the body. Yeah, a good point is to actually touch up on this as well. Superior means on top, inferior means below, posterior means behind, anterior means in front. Okay, so we got medial delt. Okay, and the movement of the medial delt, I'll help with George is this one. Okay, is lateral abduction. That's why any kind of lateral delt raises hits the medial very well. Yeah, but if you put it in front, it's not really too much of lateral abduction anymore. Okay, I see a lot of bodybuilders do this. That's why we cue people to go more completely from the side for that lateral abduction aspect of it. If you put it in front, you're changing the angle of it. You're more now hitting. What are you hitting now, Eddie? Instead of the medial.
Anterior.
Yeah, you're more hitting anterior deltoid now because you've changed the angle of it. We're not really doing lateral abduction, and instead we're more doing, what's this movement? You guys know this? You guys know this? What's this movement of the shoulder joint?
Extension.
Flexion. Yeah, extension's the other way, Maria. It goes this way.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. You guys are gonna get it wrong. I'm gonna get it wrong. We're gonna get confused, okay? But you need to repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. And if you say it wrong, good, because then I correct you and you learn again instead of having the incorrect information. So even if you feel like you have the wrong answer, but you want to answer, I recommend that you answer, okay? So when you change your angle, more slightly in front, you're going into flexion of the shoulder joint instead, of the glenohumeral joint. And now you're working anterior head of the deltoid, okay? Now, the anterior fibers, okay, it does help with the front raise variation, but it also helps with horizontal adduction as well. So it helps with flexion and adduction. That's why it builds heavily when you do any sort of press movement. It is the biggest helper of the deltoid when it comes into any press movement, whether it's vertical or horizontal. Okay? Now, the last one, Jordan, is the posterior fibers of the deltoid or the posterior deltoid. What movements are they and how can you train it?
So there's abduction, extension, and external rotation.
So, yes, exactly. So these things really help with any rowing variations, okay, or pulling variations, whether it's horizontal or vertical. Anything that you work properly with rows and that pull down. So remember, one more time, if you teach a person who has internal rotation to row and they go and do this, they're never going to get better, okay? You need to teach them scapular, retraction, and depression, preferably in an open chain on cables, because then they can work the actual movements of protraction and retraction of the scapula. Okay, I do not recommend it so much when you're in a bent over row for people who aren't really that strong or they don't really have good movement, because more often than not, what happens is they don't know how to control the scapula to go to protraction, and instead they go into thoracic flexion, which is what we want to avoid. When you go into horizontal rows, okay, this is a hinge movement where you keep at isometric, and what you're really working is retraction, depression of the shoulder blade, and go back into protraction or to shoulder blade only. Everything else is going to be locked into position. So I wouldn't really recommend teaching anyone, and that goes back to Maria's question of, is there go-to exercises I have to teach retraction and depression? There is not, okay? And the reason why I say this is because you just need to teach them how to pull their shoulder back and down. This is more cueing than exercise selection. Once they can do it on a body weight movement, that's when I'll introduce things like bands, weights, single arm lat pulls, okay? Single arm subscap pulls, subscap pull-ups, seated rows, yeah? Lat pull downs, anything like that, I'll introduce it after they can get the body weight movement of protraction and retraction and depression. A good tip to teach your clients is always teach them how to do the exaggerated wrong way of anything, because then teach them to do the correct way as well. You can also teach them the overcorrected way where they retract the shoulder blades way too much to the point where it's not in the proper position. Tell them to find a middle. They'll know from then on what to do, what to feel for, and what not to feel for. Okay? So that was a little bit of a tangent, but now we are on to...
Sorry, I have a question before we move.
Sure, go for it.
When we say real delt, is the same that the posterior delt?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Rear delt. Okay. Posterior means rear or behind. Yeah. I just like to use the proper terminology of it, so it's just a little bit less confusing, but it does have other names.
Oh, okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. It's just if you call it posterior, you'll always like kind of start to associate posterior meaning behind.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Very good. So the next one is the pectoralis major. Pectus meaning chest and major meaning large. Okay, so it's the pec major or the big one. The pec major is made up of two portions. Okay, so we got the clavicular portion, which is more at the collarbone. Okay, and we also got the sternal portion, which is down here. Okay, now what are the movements? Okay, of the pec major, Dunya?
Is adduction,
Very good.
an internal rotation.
Yes, very good. Okay. What else does? There's also one final small one.
Medial rotation.
That's internal rotation as well. Yeah.
It's the same. Okay.
Yeah.
Flexion of the shoulder.
Yes. Yes. Very good. Flexion at the shoulder at the glenohumeral joint. Very good. So this movement. Okay. So we have adduction, horizontal adduction. Okay. We have internal rotation. Okay. Medial rotation. Okay. And also flexion. So this movement. But we don't do this now, do we? When we go to bench press. We don't internally rotate when we bench press. However, what does happen is that the fibers, when they get, remember, the fibers pull. What does it do? Because it inserts, I'm going to teach you just the basic terms now, but it inserts into the shoulder joint, okay? And onto the humerus. So it goes here, all right? So when it pulls, it does that. That's why you see a lot of like heavy bench presses. Yeah, they got like big cannonball, especially around the front. It's slightly internally rotated as well. Yeah, it's because everything about the bench press, about the lat pull down, they're very strong internal rotators. Okay, so why do we? Okay, so we've got barbell. Okay, with barbell bench press, which works this movement, but for more hypertrophy aspects, or to actually get full work of the pec major fibers, what do we recommend to put in programs instead? Let's go for Jordan.
Dumbbell bench press.
Yeah, dumbbell bench press. Why is that?
There's more adduction and abduction, which you need for the pec to grow.
There is more, but at the same time, you're also including that final movement of flexion of the shoulder joint as well. Yeah, and you're right. We get the full. So remember, to get the full, like, let's say full activation of the fibers, we have to go to full lengthen as well. Okay, in the range that we can control, and that means complete horizontal abduction. Yeah, if we do that on a bench press, one, there's not enough range to go down there, and number two, well, there's going to be a certain point where the scapular retraction and depression stops you on a bench because you're held together by a bar. So what we recommend instead, which allows for a little bit more free movement, is dumbbells, because you don't have to keep your scapula as fixed in position. Okay, it allows for a bit more movement, just a little bit. It doesn't mean that you pop it out of place every time though. Okay, like some people do. And don't do these crazy things where I see people doing this. It's just weird. All right, cool. So we've got that. All right, and then the next one we're going to talk about is the pectoralis minor. Pectus one more time is chest. Minor as in lesser. We good? That was weird. All right, so we've got the lesser pec. Okay, what are the movements, okay, of the pectoralis minor, Eddie?